This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. Vocation Awareness Week is observed this year from Sunday, November 3rd until Saturday, November the 9th. This year, churches throughout the Diocese of Wilmington will be participating in a Called by Name program. And here to tell us about the program is Father John Enenwa and Father James Gebhardt. Welcome, gentlemen, to Catholic Forum. You are our newest priests here in the diocese. We're very blessed to have you in ministry here, and we're going to get to know you a little bit and then talk about the Called by Name program. Father John, since you're the senior priest here today, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
So my name is Father John, and I'm the third child of 5 children. My parents are still alive. I was born in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria. I did college seminary in Nigeria before I moved to the U.S. And over the years, I've always known I want to be a priest, but there always has a fear of can I do it or can I not do it? But I always remember a priest told me that you just have to try. If you don't try, how would you know? So that kept ringing a bell in my ears, and I moved to the U.S. Roughly 9 years ago, and here I am. Joined the Diocese of Wilmington in 2017, ordained a priest in 2023. So.
And you are at St. Mary of the Assumption?
Yes, I'm St. Mary of Assumption in vocations.
Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Your turn.
Yeah, so I grew up right here in Delaware, so this is home for me, and grew up at St. Catherine of Siena Parish, went to school there until the 6th grade, and then went on to St. Elizabeth's School and graduated there in 2011 from the 8th grade. For high school, I went on to the Delaware Military Academy, so that was a little bit of a different experience from my Catholic education, but it was actually there that I really explored my vocation more and really felt the Lord starting to work on my heart at that moment. Thought about the seminary towards the end of high school, but decided to go and try college first. So I did a year of college at Goldie Beacom College right here in Delaware. And then when I couldn't shake this idea of being a priest, I decided to apply to the diocese to go into the seminary. So went to Seton Hall University in their college seminary program from 2016 till 2019. And then from there went on to St. Mary's Seminary in Baltimore, where Father John also went to seminary, and now I am the newest ordained priest of the diocese. I was just ordained on May the 18th at our Cathedral of St. Peter, so it's been great so far.
Tell me, Father John, about your work at St. Mary of the Assumption in Hockessin. What's a typical day like for an associate pastor, or is there such thing as a typical day?
There's nothing like a typical day.
Yeah.
The life of a priest I've come to discover is every day as they come, you have to face it. Some days may be light, some days may be busier than the other. Mass, obviously, after Mass, and then you have to get to the office. Sometimes you have appointments, and St. Mary of Assumption, we have nursing homes around us that we do Mass at, like the Rego Heights, the Summits, the Cokesbury, and we go over there for Masses once a month. So some Tuesday, you finish Mass at the parish, you head over there, and you get hospital calls, and so you never know. That's why I said there's nothing like a typical day. Some days you go to the hospital as you're coming out from that room, and another person is dragging you to the next room because they just saw a priest, so they want you to also see their loved one. So basically, at the parish, an associate pastor as I am, I face mostly the pastoral aspect of the parish, making sure that I know what's going on with confirmation, the religious education, those things are mostly pastoral. Also trying to lean on my pastor to get to know how administration works.
And your pastor is
Father Joy Parkhurst.
Joe Parkhurst, who is a longtime pastor, very well respected, and
Yes.
is a good role model.
Yes.
Which is why they assigned you there. Yeah. What do you like best so far about the priesthood?
Basically preaching.
Preaching, yeah, good.
Yeah, I feel like I get to know people in my conversation with them. I cannot help everybody one after the other. So what I do is listen to them, hear their daily life, what bothers them. Then I incorporate it in my preaching and help them understand. Like, this is what you go through. I hear you. Because when one person is going through that, the other person is going through it, but may not be able to come to the priest and talk about it. So what I do is I incorporate everyday life of the people in my preaching, and then I say to them and help them out with solutions and stuff. So that's why I prefer preaching.
Interesting. Father James, you are the associate pastor at Immaculate Conception in Elkton, and also the Newman Center at the University of Delaware.
Right.
And that's kind of new. Well, everything's new for you.
That's right, yeah.
But so tell us about your parishes and your work at those two locations.
Sure, yeah, so pretty distinct places. Immaculate Conception is really run like a normal parish that we would encounter anywhere in the diocese. There's about 3,000 parishioners there, 1,000 families. It has a great life to the parish. There's always something going on. We just finished up our Oktoberfest, getting ready for our Christmas Bazaar, and then in December we're celebrating our 175th anniversary as a parish. So there's a lot of great stuff that's going on there. So in addition to having Immaculate Conception Church, we also have St. Jude's Mission Church out in Northeast Maryland. So we're going back and forth for masses there as well. And then the University of Delaware at the Newman Center, that's definitely a unique pastoral experience. It's an awesome place to be assigned, especially as a newly ordained priest. But we are basically the Catholic parish for the students of the University of Delaware. So we have mass, daily mass Monday to Friday, and then 2 Sunday masses. We have a great student lounge there, so students are welcome to come and study, hang out at the Newman Center. We have a lot of social activities that are going on, and we're just really there to help students on their path of discipleship and helping them on their journey of faith. And so far this year, Father Jasper and I are both new there. So it's been a bit of a learning experience for both of us, but the response has been really good, thanks be to God. So we've had great attendance so far. We're seeing maybe around 200 students on a Sunday, so that's been great. And then now being in October, we're starting to see that core group of students that are really making a home at the Newman Center and are really participating in the life there. So it's a bit of running back and forth between the two places. It's kind of the great balancing act of trying to be present everywhere, but it's been a beautiful experience so far.
So you have, in any given week, you could be in any same mass in 3 locations, right?
That's right, yeah. And on the rare occasion, I'll be in all 3 places on a Sunday, so that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. And your pastor is Father Rich Jasper, another one of our great priests here
Right.
in the diocese. So
Yeah.
another good role model. How about you, Father James? What is your favorite part of being a priest so far?
Yeah, I think being now about 4 months into it, things never really get old, which has been great. So all the things that I wanted to do ever since I first started thinking about the priesthood, of course, in the seminary, are still beautiful to me. And that, in particular, it's celebrating Mass, that never gets old, and also hearing confessions. Before you're a priest, your only experience of the confessional is your own confessions. So it's cool to be on the other side of that and hearing, countless confessions of people. And I've just come to realize that I think that's one of the most privileged places in the world that a person can sit, to really just enter into, sin and, the depth of human struggle and be the vehicle that God is using to bring, great mercy and peace to people. So that's just been a really beautiful experience for me.
In the past year and a half, Father John, has there anything surprised you about the priesthood, something that you didn't think would be the case?
I haven't been a person of expectations, like having a certain expectation of how things should be or would be.
Right.
So
Everything surprised you.
Everything is just the same. I face them as they come.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be disappointed. So I live the life as they come. But like Father James was talking about confession, not only confession, but sometimes people book an appointment and they come to your office and sit down. It's really a privilege, Somebody who knew that, okay, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, I'm old enough to be your grandfather, but they sit down to vent to you, to speak to you, and hopefully hoping that you're going to respond and help them out through it.
Yeah.
So it's been a humbling experience, getting to that point that I become a vessel for people. Okay, it's not like a surprising thing, but it's a humbling thing. I'm humbled, and it's the most privileged place, like he said. Like, it's a privileged place to be. Getting to live in the life of people, listen to them, get into their word, to help them out from it. So it's a humbling place to be.
And you're with people during the most happy occasions and their saddest occasions.
Yes, and the most vulnerable occasions, like visiting the hospital or being at the moment when somebody's dying. And after my ordination, I've said this to a couple of friends of mine, the first ministry I actually did was being at the moment of someone dying. I got a call from the chancery to go over to Brackenville that somebody's dying, and I walked in there, the family are crying. I have to help them through that moment, even though I'm here to do the last rite, but I still have to support them through that moment, through that difficult time of their life. And being there, I just have to remember to be present at that moment. So that was my first, and it was a humbling situation for me.
How about you, Father James? Anything surprised you?
Yeah, I think to echo what you were saying just a minute ago about how priests enter into people's lives at really the most critical moments, times of great happiness and joy, but also times of sadness, times of death, and being with people at the end of life. That's something that, I always knew that was going to happen, but just to now actually live it and just to realize the great need that people have for the priest was something that was pleasantly surprising, I think, and just how how busy the life becomes, because you're doing really awesome, powerful things every single day. Like in a day's work, it's actually commonplace that I'll celebrate 3 sacraments in one day. Maybe hear a confession, celebrate mass, and then go and anoint somebody. And that's a beautiful thing, but kind of surprising too, just how much people need you and how much people rely on their priests.
My guests today on Catholic Forum are Father John N.M. and Father James Gebhardt, 2 of our newly ordained priests, and we're going to be talking about now about the Called by Name program. Both of you mentioned how important it is to have priests and how busy you are celebrating, many sacraments, maybe 3 in one day, or giving advice or comfort or help to those in need. We need priests. So this Called by Name program is designed to kind of help that. What is the Called by Name program?
So basically, Called by Name, it is centered around creating what we call a culture of vocations. So that's something that has definitely been the work of the diocese for a number of years now, where vocations is something that is welcomed and talked about not only by the vocations director, but by all of our priests. And this is, Called by Name is really extending that into our parishes. So the idea of it is on the weekend of November 2nd and 3rd, our priests have been asked to preach in their homilies about vocations, not just about the priesthood, but also vocations to the religious life and to the diaconate. And the idea of it is we are asking parishioners, we're asking people who attend Mass on Sundays, who sit in our pews, to basically look around and identify those people that they think may have a vocation. Because typically what happens is, if you feel called to be a priest, religious sister, a lot of priests and religious sisters say that it was somebody else who told them, I think you would be good at this. I think statistics show maybe about 4 or 5 people will tell somebody, hey, I think you'd be a good priest, or I think you would make a good nun or a good brother, something like that. So the idea is that we will have these basically nomination cards, whether that's in the pews or in the bulletin available in the gathering space or digitally, and people can write down the names of these people that they would nominate, people they would think would have a religious vocation, and then those cards are then submitted to the pastor, who will then give them over to the vocations director. And then beyond that, we would have a discernment group that would start to meet in conjunction with a holy hour of adoration, and then really just getting that conversation started with those people who have been nominated and who have responded to the letter, and asking, will you come and be a part of this discernment group, and maybe have a conversation about the priesthood or the religious life.
So if you're a parishioner and you see a young man, young woman, and you think, gosh, that maybe that you see them being active around the parish, so he would make a nice priest, or she would make a nice religious sister. Then you give them the name, you give it to the pastor, and then those folks will get a follow-up letter from the or from the vocations office, or from the bishop, or
Yeah, it'll be from the bishop.
From the bishop.
Mhm.
And they're under no obligation, but at least they can join a group then.
Right, and there's really no pressure there, and it's just because you come to a discernment group, just because you start a conversation, it doesn't mean that you are definitely going to enter the seminary or definitely going to enter the convent, but it's just talking to somebody else about what does all this entail, what's all this about.
And the worst it can do is somebody would feel good about themselves that, hey, somebody in my parish thinks that I would be a good priest or
Right.
or nun. So
Right.
That's cool. So how do you identify someone to nominate?
I think basically we know the people sitting in the pews, and what you get is that a lot of people have a particular spot where they sit, and they know the next person sitting next to them, and they can tell to an extent what that person is capable of doing. So basically, if you feel in your heart that this person can do this, just write the name and then submit the name. And not that because you wrote the name that the person must come. We reach out to the person. It's still on that person to come for the discernment group, but it's important, like I said at the beginning, that you give it a trial. Okay, there's no harm in trying. I had so many times I had to doubt myself, can I be a priest, can I do it? Until somebody said, just do it, okay? And I went in. A lot of people, that's why I tell them, stop being afraid. You don't know if you can until you try it. It's the only way you try something, you can do it or you cannot do it. So basically that's what we're asking the people to do. That person you feel in your heart that you can do this. Okay, you feel that this person is called to be a priest, a sister, or a brother, or a deacon, just call the person by name.
So, did anybody come to you when you were younger and said, yeah, John or James, you would make a nice priest someday? Have you ever thought of that? Did you get any of that affirmation?
Yeah, I had the stirrings of a vocation ever since I was a young boy. I used to pretend to celebrate Mass when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. But then when it started coming up again in high school, I found myself really drawn to going to Mass more, being more active. And it was, basically when you see a 16 or 17-year-old who's going to daily Mass, people take a lot of notice of that. Right. So when I was doing that, I would have people come up and ask me about, are you considering a vocation, or have you thought about this? And a big thing that I did was I started talking to priests of our diocese, and that was extremely helpful. Remember, I talked to Father John Hines, who baptized me, and then started talking to Father Charlie Dillingham, Father Chris Coffey, and just to say, of our priests in this diocese, I think that they do a really good job of vocations work in their own parishes, where I'm confident that if any young man, young woman went and spoke to any of our priests, any of our religious, they would definitely be willing to have that conversation and point them all in the right direction.
What advice would you give to a priest to encourage them to preach about vocations? Some priests it comes very natural to them, and others they might not be quite as comfortable doing that. Father John?
I don't think they're not really comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you you get on the pulpit. This is me. I get on the pulpit. I have in mind of what I'm trying to preach about that day. But when I got up there and I look at the congregation, something else comes out, because there's something the Spirit wants you to say to the people. But being intentional about it is also, that one also matters, because I think in every aspect of our preaching we can actually drop in on vocation, because we are all called in different ways, but you need to find out what are you called to do. And this our vocation called by name program, it can also help someone who is called to married life as well, but you need to, it's just a way of helping you discover your call. Is to discover where you are called to in life. So our brother priests, they can actually preach about it. It's not that they don't want to, but like I said, most often the Spirit says something different.
Yeah.
And so we are dedicating that 2 weekends to talking about it, but we can also start talking about it after then or before then. So they can put it in their homily any little way.
Right, right. So it is going to be Sunday, November 3rd is when our priests and deacons, if they're preaching, will kind of explain the Called by Name program to the folks in the pew. And then the following Sunday, which I guess would be the 10th, yeah, people are supposed to turn in their nomination cards.
Yeah, I think there's some flexibility there
Yeah.
on what pastors or parishes think is best for how to, how to receive those cards, whether that's something people could hand in on the 3rd, or whether it's dropped off at the office, or to do it digitally,
Right.
to submit that
Right.
in some way. So there's some flexibility there.
Right, right. But, okay, good. So we're just about out of time. What are some really quick things, other things that we can do to promote vocations to the priesthood and religious life?
I just think we, as a whole, as a church, we just can't be afraid to talk about vocations and to encourage them on every level. I think it's wonderful when families are open to vocations, and moms and dads are willing to support their kids if they start to show signs of that, and to really encourage it. Of course, in our schools as well, of talking about vocations, in particular during Vocations Awareness Week. I think that's great. And then for priests, for religious, for deacons, it's so important for us just to witness to the life of the vocation that we're all living. If people see that you're joyful in that and that you love what you're doing, there's something very, very attractive about that to a young person. And then of course to pray for vocations. I mean, that is so important, and that we ask the diocese to do that. And thankfully there's a number of parishes that do have holy hours for vocations. Even our own cathedral has that every Friday. So it's so important to ask the Lord to send the laborers to the vineyard as well.
Well, Father John Nnemois and Father James Gebhardt, thank you so much for taking time out of, I know, a very busy schedule that both of you have to be with us today on Catholic Forum.
You're welcome, Bob.